April 14th, 2021, east of Tombstone, Arizona. It's shortly after 11 p.m., and an agent with the Department of Homeland Security is tracking an A-10 Warthog plane. He's operating a forward-looking infrared camera, or FLIR, mounted atop a truck. The A-10 appears silhouetted because with this camera, hot objects are black while cooler objects appear white. The leaker didn't elaborate on why this plane is flying over Arizona or why a DHS agent would be filming it. But it's in our hands because nobody expected what happened next. A spherical object appears to be chasing the fighter jet. Like the A-10, the object's heat signature is also black hot. But when the agent changes to a different setting, the UAP shows up like a bright orb trailing the A-10. At times, the light is traveling so fast, the FLIR operator has problems following it and keeping it in frame. This video remained secret until it was sent to UFO investigator Andy Marcion.
When I saw this and I realized that this was real, I understood that, what I got my hands on was a big deal.
For some, this Arizona sighting falls in line with much of what we've heard about UAPs from other government sources.
At an April 2023 congressional hearing, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the head of AARO, testified that 52% of all UAP cases it has investigated, the objects are spherical, most measure between 1 and 4 meters across. This sighting falls into all of the major categories.
AARO is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the Department of Defense's official agency for tracking unidentified aerial phenomena. And Title notes they've seen some similarities, more concerning than others.
Kirkpatrick also presented a number of cases where spherical UFOs are seen trailing military planes. The video shows that the object is keeping up with the A-10 Warthog like it's nothing. This has led some people to wonder whether these spheres are actually aliens tracking our military technology.
There are many reasons why extraterrestrials might be interested in our military: surveillance, curiosity. One former NASA astronaut has even claimed that aliens prevented a nuclear exchange during the peak of the Cold War. So were aliens really monitoring the A-10 Warthog, or was this something else flying in the plane's airspace? After releasing the footage, Andy Marcion went to his friend, David Fulch, for answers. Fulch is a FLIR technician and operator who works with the exact same cameras our video was shot on. The first question is, could this be much ado about nothing? Are we simply looking at a bird?
It appears that the object is flying around the same speed as the aircraft, which is traveling about 340 to 350 miles an hour. I don't know any birds that fly 350 miles an hour.
Next, we check with Rich Hoffman of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. If it's not a bird, could it be another object seen over the Arizona desert nowadays?
Within the last year alone, there's been about maybe 2,200 incidents reported by Homeland Security of drones being used to carry drugs across the border and into U.S. territory. However, a drone wouldn't be changing the shape. This particular object doesn't remain round. In fact, we don't know of any technology that changes shape like this as it flies.
What kind of airborne object can change its shape? Perhaps a balloon in the process of deflating? We asked astronomer and visual effects artist Mark D'Antonio whether or not that theory is full of hot air.
Could it be a balloon? Probably not, based on the speed of its motion. It looks like it's something that's moving along under its own power, fast enough so that it can stay in the field of the A-10. Now, it's still possible it could be caught in the fast-moving wind column.
The winds and jet streams on average reach speeds of about 110 miles per hour. But if a balloon was caught in that stream, how could it keep up with the Warthog, which typically flies at 350 miles per hour? So with no earthly explanation for this object, could we be looking at something truly extraterrestrial?
It's changing its size. We don't know any craft or any objects that can do that.
Our verdict? We're calling this one a genuine UFO. And it's worth noting, we see striking similarities here to other government-released videos, like the infamous USS Nimitz Tic Tac. But let's be cautious here. We're still uncertain this object is of alien origin. In any case, Andy, keep them coming. February 3rd, 2020, south of Tucson, Arizona, at approximately 2100 hours, a Border Patrol FLIR camera scans a residential area. Houses and cacti populate the frame when suddenly a strange white object appears. It glides across the screen with an almost humanoid silhouette, passing over a long stretch of desert and even some cattle. It maintains both a consistent elevation and that bright white color. The video is one of several shot by U.S. authorities and leaked to UFO investigator Andy Marshall.
The footage was leaked to me by Department of Homeland Security agent. He wished to remain anonymous. He knew what was captured in these videos were anomalous and that he had to get the videos out somehow to show the world that these things are real.
Andy dubs the video La Bruja, Spanish for the witch, because it looks like a witch sitting upright on a broomstick. Longtime FLIR technician David Fulch says that to understand the thermal footage, you first need to know that in this case, the camera is set to display white as cold and black as hot.
What you're seeing is a white object in a black hot scene. So this being white means it's ice cold. You don't see anything like that in the sky. You see birds, you see aircraft. Everything is putting on a warm thermal signature. There's nothing out there in the sky that's got a cold thermal signature.
Nothing that we know of. But Andy can think of a similar unknown object spotted around Tucson, which came to be known as the rubber duck.
The rubber duck incident took place November 23rd, 2019, and it was shot from a reconnaissance plane. And as they were overlooking the landscape, an object came into view, and they recorded it for up to 40 minutes. That object that was captured in that footage is almost identical to the one captured in La Bruja. The shape, the fact that it was emitting zero heat.
In 2021, Andy helped leak the rubber duck footage, so-called because it looks like a rubber duck. Here on Proof, we declared it a genuine UFO, and a recent paper from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, or SCU, concurred. Fulch, who contributed to the paper, can attest to the in-depth analysis which led to that conclusion.
The paper investigated the characteristics of the rubber duck, what the approximate temperature was, the speed of the aircraft, the trajectory, the flight path.
The paper found the rubber duck anomalous in 3 respects: its white cold temperature, its odd shape, and its speed, especially that it flew against the wind, meaning it could not have been a balloon.
All these things combined to come up to this big conclusion of they didn't know what it was either.
So, is La Bruja related to the famed rubber duck?
They're both ice cold, not having any signs of propulsion, not changing thermal signature, looking like they're on a linear travel. It doesn't make any sense.
Now, because we're talking about the U.S.-Mexico border, we have to consider whether both these objects were aerial devices used to smuggle drugs. After all, Border Patrol agents recently saw 21 cases of drone infiltration along the San Diego-Mexico border in a 13-month period. But that's just one possible explanation. Let's see what our experts say. We first asked SCU President Rich Hoffman if there is any way this could be a bird.
Even in infrared, you can make out a lot of details that are pretty remarkable. You'd be able to tell that it was a bird or not a bird. There's no flapping, and birds aren't cold like this. In thermal, a bird will appear dark.
And as we did with the rubber duck footage, we have to consider if this could just be a balloon. In this case, the wind actually supports the theory. Fulch estimates that the FLIR camera is pointed southwest, meaning La Bruja is headed southeast. And the weather data in Tucson at the time of the sighting shows a light breeze from the west-northwest. But Hoffman says it doesn't look quite right.
Some party balloons, for example, like latex, will be see-through. A mylar balloon will reflect the heat from the ground, and so it wouldn't be completely white like this.
So could this be some type of conventional aircraft? Fulch doesn't think so.
A helicopter or plane is out of the question because this FLIR is just looking around kind of almost at a ground level. So if it was an aircraft, it would have to be extremely small in size, and it's not emitting any type of heat, so it's obviously easy to rule out that it's no type of aircraft.
If it has to be low flying, then could it be a drone?
You would see stop-go movements that would kind of sway the object. You don't see that in La Bruja. And how the signature looks compared to a drone, you would see a difference from the heat and the thermal signature generated from the engines.
So is this really a UFO?
Bottom line is you've got an unusual shape here, and I haven't been able to put this to anything rational. It just doesn't match up. So it's unknown to me. I can't begin to classify it at all.
Our verdict, like the SCU's conclusion with the rubber duck, we also think La Bruja is a genuine UFO. It's October 12th, 2004 in Phoenix, Arizona. At around 7:45 p.m., local resident Jeff Woolwine has set up a camera to film the night sky when he captures something out of this world. His video shows a bright white oblong-shaped light hovering in the sky. Eventually, the light begins to blink, and then remarkably, it appears to slowly split apart, transforming from one single object into two separate entities. Shortly after they break apart, the two lights gradually disappear, one after the other.
It's amazing, you know, because you're out there and you're watching, and these things just magically appear in the sky. There's no airplanes dropping these things out. There's no explanation on why these things are here.
Jeff says this is exactly what he's spent years looking for.
I've been seeing these Phoenix lights ever since I was a kid. And, you know, it really made me go on a quest to find out what is really going on here in our Phoenix skies.
So since this is Phoenix, the big question is Jeff's footage related to the most well-known UFO sightings here ever? Journalist MJ Banias takes us back to March 13th, 1997, the night that would make the term Phoenix Lights famous worldwide.
Multiple people reported seeing very strange lights hovering over Phoenix, Arizona. They formed a large V-shaped object that hovered for several hours. Other reports circulated of individual lights moving around Phoenix as well. There's some photographs of lines of lights that kind of show up in the sky.
At the time, some felt the V-shape formed one massive craft, estimated to be the size of more than 10 Boeing 747s. With so many witnesses, the government was forced to investigate.
It took several months, but eventually the U.S. military confessed that they were actually running operations over Phoenix. The operation was known as Snowbird. A whole bunch of A-10 aircraft were in the sky, and they were testing out different models of flares.
But was that the real story or a cover story?
Several people believed that this was a cover-up and that the military was essentially trying to hide the fact that something else was operating over Phoenix that night. And Jeff believes that his video seems to show that perhaps there is some sort of resurgence of the Phoenix Lights.
It turns out Phoenix Lights is actually a bit of a misnomer. The first sightings in 1997 occurred earlier that night near Henderson, Nevada, nearly 300 miles from Phoenix. So two separate events could have been conflated into a single moment. Either way, the question still remains, is Jeff's footage proof that the Phoenix Lights are back? Rich Hoffman of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies begins by comparing Jeff's footage with the reports from that fateful night in March of 1997.
The Phoenix Lights were a triangular shape, not two lights in the sky like this. The residents were describing one structure that was having multiple lights, and this is like one, so there's no comparison there.
Yet even if this isn't related to the Phoenix Lights, how does one explain the mind-boggling moment when Jeff's alleged UFO appears to divide into two separate objects, which then disappear? Astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio thinks he may know.
Earlier in the video, it looks like it's just one object because they're probably behind each other. But later on, as the objects move apart from each other, it gets more and more elongated, and then you start to see two distinct and separate objects. So is this a splitting UFO? Or is it two objects behind each other?
If it is two objects, are they decidedly less exotic than alien craft?
Are they balloons? Are they drones? Are they aircraft? Well, this was 2004. It's not very likely that they were drones, unless it was some kind of military drone.
The main type of unmanned military aircraft in use in 2004 was the remotely operated Predator drone. It's the size and shape of a small airplane, which also doesn't explain how the lights on it could split like we see in this video. So does that mean we need to call this a UFO after all? D'Antonio has his doubts.
This was probably a launch of two sky lanterns.
A sky lantern is a miniature hot air balloon made out of oiled paper and a wire frame with an opening at the bottom for a candle or other small source of fire.
The giveaway is that they vanish. That's because the flame packets are fuel, and that fuel gets exhausted after a little while. And when it gets exhausted, the flame goes out. And that's just what we see here.
Our verdict, this splitting object or objects remain unidentified. D'Antonio's sky lantern idea is intriguing, but how could they fly so close together that they appear as one? The original Phoenix lights and similar incidents in the Phoenix area in the 2000s have been attributed to flares set off by the military and others. Yet there are still those who are skeptical of these down-to-earth explanations. November 6th, 2018, Arizona. A U.S. Army AH-64 Apache attack helicopter is preparing for a training flight.
Runway 281, taxiing north to Tower 2 West, slopes 1 count.
The crew is just about to take off when suddenly something moves directly in their flight path. Take a closer look. The helicopter's thermal imaging camera picks up three bright objects that appear to instantaneously circle each other. UFO investigator Andy Marcial releases the video after receiving the footage from a secret source at the Department of Homeland Security.
One of the things that stood out the most was the maneuver that was captured, where they kind of went around each other in this very weird fashion. There's just nothing I know that can pull some kind of maneuver like that off in mid-flight. That's the mystery.
In an earlier episode, we brought you this video, the mysterious UFO dubbed the rubber duck. Now we have another strange unidentified object also captured in Arizona by Department of Homeland Security cameras. According to journalist MJ Banias, when this video was examined at the science and tech website, The Debrief, they didn't know what to think.
We brought in several experts to look at the footage, to analyze the objects in this video to figure out what was going on, and confirmed that the point in the video where the objects appear to rotate around one another is an impossible maneuver.
We've featured videos of UFOs in bizarre circling formations before, like these flaming objects captured in the skies over England. But the speed and rapid change of direction with these craft are unlike anything we've ever seen. So what could they be? Well, Benaya says if you want an answer, don't ask the US government.
When the Debrief published this video and the story, the Pentagon did not comment on it. The DHS did not respond to requests for comment. Basically, the United States government did not respond to confirm the video.
With the rubber duck UFO, this is the second leaked video for the Department of Homeland Security that Andy Marshall has brought to us. Clearly, he's got a motivated source sending him this stuff. And we've got something unusual going on in the skies over Arizona. But what? According to Banias, the DHS wouldn't reveal any info and maybe even doesn't want us to know. So can our experts solve this? Let's see. We begin with Rich Hoffman of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies.
When I first looked at it, I thought that the video was quite interesting. And there have been a lot of UFOs seen around military locations.
But is this a UFO? Hoffman isn't so sure.
UFOs have a tendency to hover, and then they'll shoot either straight up or they'll shoot off at an angle. Some are actually seen to flip on its side and actually shoot off in a specific direction. You don't see that here.
The footage was captured at a military training ground. So could it be another military aircraft? That's what the pilots initially thought.
Wow, are those three really fast flying jets up there?
But aviation expert Tim McMillan says not so fast.
So let's take some of the fastest or best performance jets that we could think of that will be operating in this area. So F-16s, F-18s, something like that. They can't turn at such an extreme angle. They have to bank at a certain angle at a certain speed. The human body, frankly, just cannot handle the amount of G-force, the amount of pressure that it would take you. And so these objects actually change completely in a 360-degree rotation, really in under 3 seconds. You wouldn't see that from a jet. It's too extreme of an angle.
So what could this be? Hoffman thinks an overhead view could yield some answers.
I went into Google Earth to be able to see the measure of the runway, and I determined it was 1,600 feet. And if you looked at that angle of the formation, it was about maybe 20 degrees above the horizon. So I'm able to take those and put it into a trigonometry tool that allows me to very quickly determine the object here is roughly about 300 feet in terms of the distance. And then you can come up with the measures and you find out that the object is about less than 1 foot in terms of its total length.
A foot-long object that can make quick turns while flying in a formation? It leads Hoffman to only one conclusion.
When you saw the motion and the rotational pattern like that, it came to mind it's more than likely birds, because birds move like that. They do play with each other in the sense of flying around in circles. They typically can be moving as quickly as 85 to 100 miles an hour. An entire swarm can swivel and turn in less than a second.
Our verdict? We're going with birds. We agree with Hoffman that the lightning-fast movements and tight turns aren't examples of jets at Mach speeds, but instead aerobatic animals.